And he's decided not to talk to you today. He's asked his great friend, an old friend, Mark Henrington, to do the honours, so I'll hand you over to Mark.
I have to tell you that Saga does not stand for Send a Granny Away. It stands for Sex Annually, Generally August. It's also a great pleasure to propose this toast to the old friend, because as any of you who've done this job will know, it is one of nature's great natural laxatives. By way of example, I was speaking at a big dinner in London a few years ago. I was proposing the toast to the Chartered Institute of Structural Engineers. And as I rose to my feet to speak, having been introduced by the resplendent Toastmaster in his pink coat and wing collar, I noticed the President rushing off to the left-hand side of the table in a crouched position and disappearing through the double doors to the far left. The Toastmaster came across to me and he handed me a small piece of paper. I looked at the piece of paper and I put my mouth into autopilot for a moment, and I turned to the Toastmaster and I said, "Is this an I or an O?" He said, "It's an I, sir," and I said, "Thank God for that. For one terrible moment I thought that the President had shot himself." I must also apologise if I sound a little rough this afternoon, but I was up until far too late last night, and I drank far too much than usually, celebrating my grandfather's 105th birthday. Please don't applaud. My grandfather died 35 years ago. We thought it was a good opportunity for a piss-up, and also an opportunity to drown our sorrows, England having been beaten by France. It's also a great honour to have been asked to propose this toast by the family, who've so generously put on this party for us today. Unfortunately, not all those who were invited have been able to attend, and I do have some apologies for you. First of all, the Bishop of Winchester sends his apologies. He's raising some money for charity this weekend. He's on a sponsored walk from Lymington to Cowes. Tony Blair apologises for not being able to be here. He tells of the company that he keeps. He's just returned, as you know, from his meeting with Colonel Gaddafi, and he's had to fulfil an important appointment today with his dentist to have a wisdom tooth put in. Tony Blair's come up with a marvellous way of reducing the dole queue, the length of the dole queue. He's going to ask everybody to stand closer together. And I read in the Sunday Times this morning that, in fact, he is absolutely certain that the economy is going to improve in the 5th quarter of this year. John Prescott sent his apologies. He had a medical on Friday and he failed to piss a fatness test. Yeah, I think that's right. Lord Archer couldn't be with us today. Geoffrey has had plastic surgery recently. He's had his Barclay card removed. Claire Short, one of our MPs from Birmingham, she sent her apologies. She's also recuperating from a recent charisma bypass operation. And one of David's great sporting heroes, George Best, couldn't be with us today. He's had a recurrence, as you know, of his recent little drinking problem. I'm told on good authority that his latest tipple is vodka and window lean. It means he's still pissed when he wakes up in the morning, but at least his eyes are clear. So what can I tell you from my long-standing friendship with this man, Christopher David Arbuthnot Butterworth? MBA, JCPB, BMHBLSS, or Butty, as he's known to those of us who know him and love him as much as he does. I have absolutely no idea what MBA stands for. But I can tell you that JCPB is the Junior Cycling Proficiency Band. And PMHPLSS is the bronze medal holder of the British Life Saving Society, two achievements of which David is particularly proud. David was born in Petersfield in Hampshire, the fourth son of the Reverend Arthur Butterworth and his wife Doris. He was a pretty little boy, as you will have gathered from the invitation that we were all sent. But I have to tell you that by all accounts, he was not a pretty baby. In fact, he wasn't even good looking. He was ugly. In fact, he was so ugly that the midwife slapped his mother. His father Arthur walked into the room following the birth, and he gave David a funny look. And as you can tell, he's still got it. By the age of 10, David was at his prep school, Mount Pleasant School in Somerset, BC. The teacher there asked Butty, "What is a ratio?" And Butty said, "I think he was a captain in the Hornboat." Another asked him, "With what do you connect the name Baden-Powell?" And Butty said, "Would that be a hyphen, sir?" In a scripture class, he was asked to describe Damascus, and he said, "I think it kills all known Germans." And when he was asked, what did Moses say when he went to Mount Olive, he said, "Papa, I'll be bloody furious." This is not up. On one embarrassing occasion, Matron caught him playing with himself. And she said, "Stop it, Butterworth. If you go on doing that, you'll go blind." And Butty said, "All right, Matron, but would it be all right if I went on doing it until I got a little bit short-sighted?" A few years ago, talking about prep schools, Butty reminded us of a story about a game he used to play with Matron called Snugglers. This game would involve at tea time, he would go and see Matron, who would make him take all his clothes off, and then she would put him in a nappy. He would then say something very vulgar to her, and she would take off his nappy, and she would smack his bottom very hard, and he would pretend to cry. And she would then snuggle him to her ample naked breast until he felt better. The really embarrassing thing was that David was the chairman of the Board of Governors at the time. Butty then moved on to St John's Leatherhead, where he was in a class of his own. Not particularly clever in it, just rather smelly. But he did well in obtaining 10 O-levels. The headmaster asked him to take him back because he said they weren't his. The present headmaster, who I contacted by email, was good enough to search through the records for me, and he emailed a copy of one of David's reports from the summer term of 1950. Under the subject of French, it says, "David has had 2 mistresses this year, neither of whom have been satisfied by his performance." Under biology, it said C French above. Under English, under life skills, it said C biology above. And under English, it said, "We think that David could do better if he made English his first language." Under geography, it said, "We never failed to be amazed that David finds his way home at the end of term." And under maths, it said, "David sets a low standard for himself, which he constantly fails to achieve." He was asked this term how many seconds there were in a year, and he said 12. January the 2nd, February. head of house, captain of cricket, captain of rugby, head of school, were all achievements that eluded him. But nevertheless, he did well enough to be accepted by the British Army, where with the Royal Green Jackets he served in Germany and in North Africa. I don't know why, but the image of the young butty in a beret always seems to remind me of Frank Spencer. During his basic training, his commanding officer was a wonderful, colourful character with a great sense of humour, but a very unfortunate speech impediment. One day, Butty and his intake were put on parade by the Sergeant Major. The commanding officer came out on the parade square and he said, "Oh, okay, chaps. Stand at ease." He said, this afternoon, he said, I've come to talk to you all about guard duty. He said, at dusk this evening, he said, you will all be issued with a rifle. And 15 rounds of live ammunition. And he said, at dusk, he said, you will all go out and patrol the perimeter fence. Now, he said, if you hear anybody coming, he said, you shout in a very loud voice. Who goes there? He said, now if they say friend, he say, you say, advance and be red. He said, if on the other hand they say far, he said, you shoot on sight, but please wait at least 15 seconds in case it's me. Whilst in Germany, David was desperate to find a girlfriend, but was not having a great deal of success. So he put an advert in the local paper which read, I am the world's greatest lover. I have a great imagination and tremendous stamina. I love doing it anywhere, anytime, either indoors or outside in the fields or the woods. And I am experimenting with new positions. However, I would now like to try it with a partner. He evidently got a good response, and it's recorded by the age of 23 that he was an authority on women. Now, the women didn't know anything about that, but the authorities did. By the age of 25, he was in banking, where his highly developed sense of humour stood him in great stead. In fact, in the Bank of South America in Brazil, he was known as a wit of a banker. Yes, a wit of a banker. Then followed 8 glorious years with the Guinness Group, during which time in Birmingham he met the lovely Karen, affectionately known as Barrel, who was working for a hotelier, George Morris, a staunch supporter of Moseley Rugby Club at the Barrow Court Hotel. David and I were both members of Moseley Rugby Club, Edgbaston Tennis Club, Warwickshire Cricket Club. He lived in Blakedown, about a mile from where I lived at home, next door to a friend who was taking out my sister. And the amazing thing is that during all the time he was in Birmingham, we never met. And how that happened, we will never know. But from my point of view, it was a bloody good thing. Otherwise, as you can imagine, I probably would have been led seriously astray. Anyway, during the time with Guinness. He was a great success, and the Irish too loved his zany character and sense of humour. Don't you love the Irish sense of humour? And it must be so hard for them when so many offensive and demeaning jokes, calling themselves so-called Irish jokes, are sort of trotted out. I mean, I've always found it amazing that somebody could stand up in front of an audience and tell the story about the Irishman who wanted to change his name by deed poll. This Irishman went to the registrar's office and said, "Excuse me," he said, "but is this the place where I'd be changing my name by deed poll?" And the registrar said, "It is, sir." He said, "Well then, please, if you don't mind, I would like to change my name." So he said, "What is your name?" He said, "Michael Shithouse." He said, "Well, I really don't mind you wanting to change your name. What do you want to change it to?" He said, "Patrick Shithouse." Tell stories like that, or the story about the Irishman who went for a job and he was asked to fill in a questionnaire and he went outside and hit the doorman. I mean, or the Irishman who wanted to get rid of his mother-in-law and he sent her off down the Falls Road wearing a t-shirt on which he'd written in large letters the word Protestant. She came back an hour later with 50 quid in her hand and he realised he couldn't spell either. And David agrees that the Irish sense of humour is absolutely great. I remember going to a rugby match in Lansdowne Road a few years ago. We were walking to the ground and there was a newspaper seller at the side of the road and I thought I'd buy myself a newspaper. And I said, "Do you have a Telegraph?" And he said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Do you want today's or yesterday's?" I said, "I'd like today's, please." And he said, "Oh, if you want today's, you'll have to come in tomorrow." Handwritten, propped up on the Gideon Bible at the side of the bed, and it said, "If you're an alcoholic, ring this number." So just for the hell of it, I did, and it was an off license in Trinity Street. It was about this time that David's doctor told him that drinking was bad for his liver, so he gave up liver. And he gave up working for Guinness and he resumed his successful career in international banking and insurance, and after 7 years this led him to a job with the Nixon Group of companies and a move from Buckingham to Lincolnshire. But he left that job after 3 years because the chairman, well, he left for health reasons, that's right, the chairman got sick of him. And so he returned to his native county of Hampshire with his wife and 2 young children, Alex and Dan, and he set up here, his home here in Bolton. And they started the family firm of Butterworth and Butterworth, living as far away as we do. We're not quite sure what the family firm does, but whatever it is, they've been highly successful, and it's enabled them to indulge themselves in the expensive hobby of owning horses, and with Alex competing successfully in horse trials all over the country. I think 7 times at badminton with the famous horse Ian and with Alex and Drew, and competing in horse trials all over the country. I think 7 years, if I'm right, at badminton with the famous horse Ballycotton. So here we are, 70 years later, looking at a remarkable specimen, still going strong, despite a major operation recently, with the lovely and loving Barrel still by his side. They say that there's nothing that she wouldn't do for him, and that there's nothing that he wouldn't do for her, and that's how they go through life, doing absolutely nothing. I'm sure that's not true. They're obviously a great team, and they work wonderfully well together. They have an enviable, true family relationship with Alex and Drew, and Dan and Michelle. and they're very proud and supportive of them and their two lovely grandchildren, Emily and Megan. By comparison, Enoch and his wife Doris from the Black Country are not quite so close. Doris said to Enoch the other day, she said, you ain't very romantic, am you, Enoch? He said, what do you mean I'm not very romantic? She said, Mr. Perkins next door, before he goes to work every morning, he gives his wife a kiss and a cuddle. She said, you don't do that, do you? He said, of course I don't. She said, I hardly know the woman. And he's a bit of a chauvinist, as our Enoch. He won the lottery the other day, and Camelot sent their representative up to Gornal in the Black Country, and knocked on his door, and the Reverend Camelot said, are you Enoch? He said, I am. He said, well, we're very pleased to tell you at Camelot that you have won the lottery. He said, oh, bloody good. He said, how much have I won? The representative said, you have won £1 million. He said, bloody hell. He said, £1 million? I've won £1 million? Blimey. He said, that's good. He said, well, would you mind telling us at Camelot whether you think this is going to change my way of life? I should bloody think it's going to change my way of life. £1 million? So they said, well, would you mind telling us what you do? He said, not at all. He said, I clean the gents' toilets at Tesco's supermarket. And they said, no, you're married. He said, I am married. He said, I've been married these 30 years. And he said, and what does your wife do? He said, my wife cleans the ladies' toilets at Sainsbury's supermarket. And the chap from Camelot said, well, do you think it's going to change her way of life? He said, why? Has she won the lottery as well? Thank you very much indeed for inviting us all to be here with you today to celebrate this special occasion. Thank you for your kind and generous hospitality. Thank you for all the fun and good times that we've enjoyed together over so many years. And thank you for your good and effervescent company and for the happy memories of so many good laughs together. I think that Hillel Belloc summed it up very nicely when he wrote, from quiet homes and first beginnings out to undiscovered ends, there's nothing worth the wear of winning but laughter and the love of friends. Yeah. Please be outstanding and join with me in a toast to the continuing and long-lasting continuing and long-lasting of the one and only, the unique husband, father, father-in-law, grandfather, and good friend, David.
David. Cheers, Dave.
I'm not a public speaker like Martin, but I'm going to accept that. Thank you for all of it.